the mission of Mentor, Discover, Inspire is to cause greatness by mentoring men to live with excellence, and as mature masculine leaders, create successful families, careers, and communities. I'd like to introduce the Executive Vice President, Ben Estes, to read our vision.
Mentor, Discover, Inspire vision. A world where honor, selflessness, commitment, integrity, and learning give men the wisdom and courage to serve all men, women, and children for the betterment of humanity.
Thank you. So I want to share my vision, and then I'm going to tell you what we're up to tonight. My vision as president of Mentor, Discover, Inspire is transform Mentor, Discover, Inspire into a movement about men giving and receiving the truth to each other, and with that truth, be transformed. So the last town hall we did for operations some months ago, there were several requests, both during the call and after, to do more of them. And I wanted to do one, and I wanted to, I thought that was a good idea at the time, and I still think it is now. And I also think it's just important because I think that we, at the international level of operational leadership, give membership an opportunity to ask us questions. And tonight our topic is going to be the future of Mentor, Discover, Inspire. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have four of the vice presidents introduce themselves and talk about their programs with some specific reference to how it will affect our future and how you may be able to participate in that future. There will be short presentations. They will not be long, a few minutes each. And then we will open the floor for questions about both what they presented and about issues that pertain directly to the future of Mentor, Discover, Inspire. Ben, is there anything that I missed or you think I should add?
No, I think that's good. I think that's good.
Awesome. Okay, so I ask you to mute if you're not. And what we're going to do is I'm going to start off with our Vice President of Team Leader Development, and that would be Dave Smith. So Dave, if you would take it away. I will mute my ass.
Thank you. My name is Dave Smith. I'm the Vice President of Team Leader Development. I live in Markham, Ontario. That's just outside Toronto. I've been in Circles of Men since 1994. I've been a team leader. I've been the International Weekend Administrator with Sterling Institute of Relationship. I've been the Division Sponsorship Manager, Division Team Leader Development Manager, Regional Team Leader Development Manager.
I saw somewhere that you are part of the team that's setting up Boys to Men Bay Area.
Yeah.
No, that's not true.
Well,
that's not true.
I'd like to ask men to, once these men have done their presentations, the rest of this call will be questions. I'm going to ask you to hold them for now and to mute if possible so that we can get through it. I promise you this will not be long and tedious. I think each man's planning on speaking for 4 minutes or less. So that would be 16 minutes. I'm hoping they'll hold to that.
Thank you. So we're entering a time when we're testing advertising on Facebook and using Meetup to attract men to our team meetings. These actions are affecting the growth of men's teams in selected areas. Guests on team meetings are staying and teams are growing. in my opinion, we're going to have a place for splitting men's teams. Men who have experience are going to be leading teams of men with little or no experience. So we should take steps to make sure that our men's teams are led by men who know how to create a space for powerful and intimate relationships. For many men, this is an uncomfortable place. I'm inspired by Jordan Peterson in his book, 12 Rules for Life. He talks about skateboarding kids without much protective gear on, sliding down a metal stair railing. They're facing danger and trying to become competent, trying to master a task. It's brave, it's amazing, living on the edge of chaos, taking a courageous step beyond competence and safety and putting everything on the line. What you learn as a team leader is your own path toward your legacy. You will learn things that I never learned because your men's team is not the same as mine. You can teach other men what you've learned by talking with them and sharing what you're passionate about as a team leader, and there's power in that communication. What we aim to do in team leadership development is create a space where you can share your wisdom with other team leaders and learn from the wisdom of your peers. We have no agenda other than helping you become a strong team leader. So here's what we're working on now that will affect the future of Mentor, Discover, Inspire. And I've got 3 bullet points to talk about. The first one is the Regional Team Leader Development Weekly Discussion. This is a place where we discover, as various regions, what we have in common, and we help each other advance team leader development in our regions. The second point is online team report form. This online form needs to be revised. So we've submitted a revised form and done some preliminary beta testing. Our form has received approval from the president, and our next step is to further beta test the form for comments before releasing it for general use. The last point is reference document publishing for team leaders and mentors. We have several existing documents that have been written by local teams of men. They contain valuable information for team leaders. They also contain local references and jargon that might not be understood when they're read by men outside their local area. So we intend to revise these documents while maintaining the spirit of the men who created them and publish them for availability on the website. So the opportunities for you to step up. If you are on a men's team, if you're a men's team leader, you are part of team leader development. If you've been a team leader and you have completed a job in a division or a regional core team, you can step up to be a team leader mentor or a division team leader development manager. So at the division level, as a team leader development manager, these are the opportunities for you. You can help create masculine and effective place to deliver powerful team meetings. You can help retain men on teams. You can nurture future leaders, help increase engagement with the division, discover different leadership styles, and make decisions that will affect all the men in your division, including men who are on core teams at various levels. So you have similar opportunities as a regional team leader development manager. And at the regional level, you can learn how to build trust among men with different backgrounds. So in summary, this is a time for men to step up and lead. The team leader development is here to help you with that. I'm complete. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next man we're going to have speak will be the Vice President of Training, and that is Matt Lyons. Assuming he's here.
I don't see him here.
All right, moving right along, we'll move on to Vice President of Marketing, Neil Gumar.
Can you hear me? All right.
Yep.
Neil Gumar is my name. My position is the VP of Marketing. I'm from Toronto, Canada, Abnaki Division. I've been here for 11 years. Some of the roles I've done is the brand manager of MDI. I've been a captain. I've been a membership manager. I've been the DC. I've just completed a couple months ago. I want to share with you something really epic, and I'm really excited to share it with you. I'm working on a customer journey for marketing. Everyone knows that we're doing Facebook right now. A customer journey is a series of touch points that string together and becomes a journey. A touch point equals, let me just share my screen with you for a sec. So here's the customer journey. It's a really intense, epic version of a customer journey. So it starts, here's just an example. A Facebook ad, then it goes a landing page, then a web form, then a welcome email, a text message, a welcome phone call, a Zoom video call. The man goes to a division meeting, then he goes to a team meeting, another team meeting, and eventually he registers to MDI. This customer journey is so epic, it takes into account everything. It'll take into account what the new man's action is supposed to be. So the new man, he clicks on the ad and so on. I won't go into all the details at this point. And what I'm really excited to build within the customer journey is a series of touch points and campaigns. So you can see over here, I've got a bunch of Facebook campaigns in the making. And then we're going to shift into some sort of video webinar style. The president's going to welcome the new man. He's going to share a little bit about himself, his story, and his intention and excitement for the guests in the upcoming weeks. So now all of this is in the making. I'm just still building it out with the marketing team. But I'm very, very pumped to build this because I know it's going to impact the future of MDI. So what I'm looking for, if you love marketing, you want to learn marketing, you're passionate to contribute inside of this, that would be amazing. What I'm really looking for also is I want to do a webinar style touch point. So, why are you here? For example, this is just one campaign along the journey. And what my vision is for like some sort of webinar style podcast where myself or other hosts can interview our men. And the topic could be just, why are you here, and getting laser focused. So it could look like just sharing stories and being vulnerable and authentic and living our brand and giving our new man something to learn. What you're also doing is you're building our brand and you're building our culture. So if you want to be the next Joe Rogan or a Tim Ferriss, this would be awesome. If you like blogging, if you like writing, if you like learning about writing and blogging inside of SEO, which is search engine optimization, this is cool. I want to hear from you. That's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Gumar. And the next VP I'm going to call on is our Vice President of Outreach from the Southwest region, Mark Prestera.
Thank you, Tomlinson. Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Prestera Mark. I am the Vice President of Outreach. I am from the Southwest region, more specifically San Diego Men's Division, and I am on Team Zen Warriors.
Mark, can you speak up just a bit? You're a bit tough to hear.
Okay, is this any better?
It's tremendously better.
All right, I'll just be a lot louder. I'll start from the top again. Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Prestera Mark. I am the Vice President of Outreach, and I am from the Southwest region, more specifically the San Diego Men's Division and Team Zen Warriors. I've been playing in this sandbox for 15 years and 3 months. I did my Sterling Men's Weekend back in March 2004, my Legacy Discovery in March 2006. And I've been at the job on the international core team basically since April 2019. Past sandboxes I've had a chance to play in, of course, many jobs on the team level, including team leader many times. I was a point man 6, 7, 8 times in the room, point program manager, involved in about 11 legacy discoveries. I am successfully completed division coordinator for San Diego Men's Division from 2012 to 2014, and successfully completed regional coordinator for the Southwest region from 2015 to 2017. What I'm building and I'm looking to affect, my personal impact, it's much bigger than that, because I have a vision, and I'd like to believe my vision is in alignment with our organization and where it is we're trying to go. And the bottom line, that is to grow. We are the spearhead of our organization. We are the men in outreach that are in the trenches. It's about relationship. So we're trying to build a multi-pronged, I guess the best way to put it is a multi-pronged growth machine. Looking to define and implement some standardized forms of dealing with our Facebook program to try to complete or get some level of better efficiency out of what it is we're doing. But most importantly, staying connected to what got us to where we are today, which is relationships, personal relationships. And that's what will keep this organization alive. And that's what the men on the outreach team are all about. And I'd like to just thank the men from every region. Mr. Allard, thank you. Mr. Tager, thank you. Mr. Louie, thank you. Mr. Conkright, thank you. Mr. Savage, thank you. You are the spearheads in your regions. And if you want to look for ways that you can help and support those men or support this team, because this team isn't just the names I mentioned myself, it is all of us. We are all in the trenches. So if you want to know how you can contribute or help, we could use ambassadors on the division level, on the team level. Better yet, ask your regional outreach manager, hey, how can I contribute? If you want to even get more specific, start with your team leader. Where can I contribute? Your DC, where can I contribute? Your regional coordinator, where can I contribute? Because I don't know how to put it any other way. For us to grow and be proactive in our growth, it really starts with each and every one of us, every man sitting in your seat right now. It's not just one specific team or designated men. This really has to be a unified effort and something we're all on board to do. And stay connected to our code of honor. There's a couple things in here that jump out at me. Be humble. Being humble is going to be a big part of being attractive to men. Embrace all men. We all come from different places, have different mindsets. And I think for both of those to happen, the very first item on the code of honor is most important. Commitment before ego. And if our commitment is to growth and give the gift away, it starts with each and every one of us. So I implore you to figure out a way that you can plug in and find your place in the men, to bring more men to the circle and give the gift away. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I'm complete.
Thank you, Mr. Prestera. And now the last vice president is the vice president of training, and that's Matt Lyons.
Good evening. It's exciting to be with all you men. Training's definitely a challenge. It's a program that has not had a lot of focus in the last 6 months, and part of my job is to reignite that effort. I think the biggest thing that I want you men to know that we're up to is that we are creating an online leadership training that is going to be, I think, a very kind of professional grade type experience on par with, well, the other offerings that one may see on the internet in terms of training. And I'm very excited about that. Not only will it serve the men in MDI in terms of a codified singular context and touch point for leadership training, team leader training, but also men who may be out in what I often call East Jesus, Idaho, who are trying to start a team. And how do I run a team meeting? And what are the basics? Along with that, we're going to be creating a standardized path to leadership. Much of these pieces are already in place, but when it's time to do a basic leadership training, an advanced leadership training, or a uber ultra leadership training, that will create a path for a man to follow as he takes on leadership roles in MDI. We're also going to be coalescing and standardizing everything that's under the umbrella of training, including the LD, and that's our charter. And I think training is one of the things this organization does best. I think that we may be a little bit jaded in the fact that we are used to these types of trainings, which, in the corporate environment, could cost thousands of dollars. So that's the overview. And that's what we're up to, and I'm very excited about what's possible. I'm done.
Thank you. So, that's a bunch of stuff, and certainly if you have questions of those men, you may ask them. But I'm going to throw it open to questions about the future now. So, if you could unmute, how are you going to do this, Dennis? Do you want men to contact you when they've got a question, and then we'll unmute them? Because it seems like there's a lot of background noise when we had everybody unmuted before.
I think we should try having the men unmute themselves to ask their question.
Okay.
And if it gets too confusing,
Unruly, we'll change that. All right. Okay. Well, who's got a question?
you do need to unmute yourself to ask a question.
Okay, good talk. So Dennis.
So this is Frost from Legacy. Can you hear me?
We can.
Great. So I want to know what the future looks like for men, young men that want what we have, and how are we making it affordable for men that are in school or men that have less means so they can be with us. I'm complete with my question.
Thank you for that. When it comes to affordability for younger men, right now that's being left up to the regions to deal with. It's difficult for international to come up with a policy for that that's blanket, and it's believed that the regions can deal with that effectively. And I know that that has been done. I know that there are men who are either unemployed or in school that have had I don't know, I guess it's kind of a bursary, or they've had regions or divisions take care of them financially. So we're leaving that to a local thing. I mean, one of the things that happen in the regions is that regional revenue also will have gone up with the dues increase, yet regional expenses are not going up. So it provides an opportunity for regions to take care of those men that are financially strapped, whether that's because of their age or their present job situation. If that's not set up in your region, I strongly recommend asking your regional coordinator why not. Oh, I didn't mean to root my video. Sorry about that. If Frost, do you feel that you got your question answered? If you're talking, Frost, you're on mute.
Yeah, it's the same answer as before. So you've done, the international has done nothing for that. So I understand you've pushed it down to the regional level, and then it comes down to the RC to create something, create funds, or use some of those funds for that. So I'm clear on what you said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think there was a question from Moreau at some point. So somebody asked that.
Yeah, this is Brown in Atlanta. Dennis, what's up with our website?
What do you mean?
Well, I used to be able to log on and get all kind of, log in, and when I try to now, I'm not getting there. I'm challenged, but I thought I knew how to do that. I go to the website, I click on log in, and it says site not available.
It's happened occasionally. It's been working.
Okay, so I should just keep trying.
Yeah, if you keep having problems, let me know. I mean, that's not. Yeah,
That's good enough.
Yeah.
This is Iris. You're probably going to the old domain. It's mentordiscoverinspire.org now. So that old domain is not working, and the new domain is where you want to go.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Maybe we can get that old domain to point to the new one.
Not.
No?
It is pointing to the new one.
Not okay.
Yeah.
But just as a general rule about the website, man, things happen and we don't become aware of them. And sometimes I know that you get pretty frustrated. I know that when technology doesn't do exactly what I want it to do when I want it to do it, it pisses me the fuck off. So please let Moreau know. And, he's, or me, and I'll forward it to him, because he could fix problems he's aware of, but you can't fix ones he's not aware of. So when you got a problem, let us know.
Well, I can do that.
Yeah, this is Goodman. You hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, Goodman, Legacy Men's Division in Santa Cruz, California. I have a question, a branding question. I've been with MDI since the beginning. I've seen us go from MDI to Mentor, Discover, Inspire to back to MDI, Success for Men, and now we seem to be using the full name of Mentor, Discover, and Inspire, and not at all using just MDI anymore. And I'm just wondering if in this day of where we're doing more online, outreach, if we might be better off, using just the MDI here and there to, just to grab on to those who are, don't have the too long of an attention span anymore. And, particularly what the board or you guys from operations have any feedback about that. So that's it. I'm complete.
So thank you. I'm actually going to field this one, even though the VP of Marketing is on the call, and I'm going to let him add something if he wishes. This was something I started personally, so I'm going to answer it. I'm responsible for it. I think that the problem with MDI versus Mentor, Discover, Inspire is that when we're talking to men that have absolutely zero context for our organization, MDI means absolutely nothing. Now, when you're a really big brand, like internally, obviously, MDI means plenty. But when you when we advertise on the internet, or when we just talk to someone on the, a friend or a neighbor or a coworker, it's just 3 letters. Now there's all sorts of, 3-letter brands that are huge, IBM, et cetera. But those companies are massive, and they're household names. They're familiar. So it was felt that mentor, discover, inspire actually meant something about who we are and what we do. And that the more that we use that, the better off that we'll be. I do get your point that there's a downside, a distinct downside to having a very long name in this day and age. I get it. And I'm going to pass it. I can see Gumar unmuted, so I'm going to pass it over to him because I'm assuming he's got something to say.
I don't have much because you were really bang on. BMW stands for Bavarian Motor Works. You ever try saying that in a sentence, you're going to look like an idiot. Yeah. And the same thing goes with, trying to say mentor, discover, and inspire 3 times in the same sentence. So again, there's a time and place to use our brand and make sure that the uniqueness of our brand and what's distinct and the messaging and the character gets through. And there's a time to use the acronym. Hope that helps.
Unless you've got a follow-up or you don't feel your question was answered. If you don't feel your question was answered, by the way, by us, or you feel that there's something else you want to know, please make sure you speak before we ask for the next question.
Yeah, no, that's good, man. That's fine. I just want to make sure that we weren't going to be real sticklers about not using saying MDI or using it in the right context. I'm complete.
Thank you. I appreciate the comment. Your question, and it was a good one and not an easy one. Who's next? Oh, okay. I know that there's some men in Calgary that are, that some of them I think are going to leave soon. So they need to go to their team meeting. So I'm going to ask men who are with Jeff Lawrence in Calgary to go next.
Yeah, we're actually in the middle of our team meeting, so we took a break to get on this call. But there's some questions that I'd love to answer, but I'd rather have you answer them.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Lee Fursberry. I'm just wondering why we care so much about growth. I mean, MDI has been around for a long time, and I don't think it's going anywhere. And on top of that, every time we seem to focus on growth, our numbers go down. So why did the numbers go down when we focus on growth, and why are we focusing on growth?
I can speak personally for that. I mean, for me, this has changed my life, and I believe that every man deserves the opportunity to be here. Hope that you realize that, while we focus on growth, in certain programs, we focus on quality in others. That's why we had the Vice President of Team Leader Development and the Vice President of Training speaking, as well as the VP of Marketing and Outreach. I don't know that when we focus on growth, we get smaller. I mean, I don't have empirical evidence for that. My own experience is that when I've been on men's teams that do not at all focus on growth, we don't do a good job of taking care of each other, and we get smaller. And when I've been on teams that do make other men important, our context level is raised, and we do a better job with each other, and we tend to grow. Right now, I'm on a team that's growing quickly. So
Tomlinson, it's Matt. Yes. So hi, buddy. Who's the VP of training?
Matt Lyons.
No way. It's hard for me not to take a shot at Matt.
It's hard for all of us not to take.
I want to know what his diet is, and how does Matt stay so slim? Matt, could you maybe answer that question for us and enlighten us? And I know you've been at this job for a long time, and Anyway, love you guys. Just thought we'd say hello.
Thanks,
All right,
Matt.
well,
But the
right
men
now
here,
right now it's Ritz crackers and Diet Pepsi.
that's what I thought.
That's my secret.
I thought. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just want to say that, 2018, we had a serious, very hard driving focus on growth, and we grew to 1,003 men. So I'm not really buying that when we focus on growth, we shrink. I don't think that's entirely true. There may be instances of that, but I'm not aware of them.
But
Not complete.
no, and I think you're correct. It's just that some of the men here, there's a room full of reasonably new fellas, and although they're inspired with your Ritz crackers diet, I'm not sure that they, the question in the room is, what about service? Where are we, what are we giving back, and how are we earning that growth? And if our man puts together 16 points of touch on the internet, and we end up with 700 men this year, how are we going to look after them?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, the service question is, not, in my opinion, we haven't really had much success when we've looked at service on a more international level. So we've left that to divisions, regions, and even teams to deal with. But in terms of taking care of the men that are coming, because the teams that are engaged in Facebook and Meetup and doing it effectively and putting some care into it are growing quite rapidly right now. And I know that because I'm on one. There's a real consciousness, I think, amongst your divisional leadership and your regional and international leadership that as these men come in, that we need to make sure that they have the same quality of experience that we have now. In fact, in your area, in HSI division in Calgary, when we asked your DC, how many men do you want to take in from Facebook this year? He said 0. He said, we need to take care of the 30 men we brought in last year and make sure that they're ready to be on teams. We're not ready to take in new men. And frankly, I agree with him. And I think that we're going to need to constantly monitor the quality that we have, because if we bring in too many men that are inexperienced at once, we really could end up with a situation where the very product we were advertising to these people we're not delivering. And we really need to guard against that. There's nobody who wants to grow for the sake of growth. I do feel that the organization can grow by 100, 200 men easily right now. But I think beyond that, we're going to need different programs in place, and we're going to need to slow down until we get there. I do know that one of our RRCs from the Northeast region, Mr. Harrigan, would like to answer that question as well.
So the way I look at it, doing this outreach is community service, because we're reaching out to the community and we're bringing men into our circle, which is offering them the opportunity we all have to be on men's teams. So the long and short of it is, yes, we grow our teams, but it's also an opportunity to share what we have, and it is our purest form of community service to share this with other men. And I'm complete.
Okay, men, we gotta log off. Thank you very much for the answers.
Good night, man.
This is Allard.
We can hear you, Allard. Go ahead.
Awesome. So there are parts of my organization and how it's laid out that are very clear to me. Like, for example, what the path is to becoming a DC, or what a team captain's responsibilities are, who the outreach division manager reports to, and what that chain of command is all about. So those are things that are super clear to me. There's a couple of things within the organization that aren't clear to me. Some of them are definitions, and some of them are more structural in nature. So one of the things that's not clear to me is how we define the word outreach. So what I've discovered over the last few months is that in MDI, even at the higher levels, some men believe that outreach, growth, and enrollment are synonymous. And other men believe that there's a distinction. Just that in itself has caused confusion in terms of expectations and outcomes. So I'd like, so the first question is, what are we as an organization going to do to get on the same page on the definition of outreach? That's the first question.
Can I answer that one? Because I get
Yes.
lost in multi-place questions. So I'm gonna answer it briefly. I'm gonna let Prestera take a kick at it. But in my mind, the men who are best qualified to answer that question are you, the other 4 outreach regional leaders, and with your VP of outreach, with consultation from your divisional outreach men. I'm not trying to kick it down the can, but I got an opinion, you got an opinion. For us to have something that we unify around, I think it comes best from the men who are doing the work on the ground and are in the middle of it.
Okay, so thank you
let me just,
for that. Thank you for that.
Prestera wants to add though, before I don't want to.
Well, hang on, because you've just identified
the
problem.
All right.
Speaking of.
Okay.
You are making it okay to have a clearly defined meaning for team leader, division coordinator, and all the other roles, and yet and it's not your fault, Tomlinson, I'm not pointing you out, but we have this collective gentleman's agreement that when it comes to outreach, we can be loosey-goosey about how we define it as an organization and leave it up to the men. But with other posts, there is no such loosey-goosiness around the definition of what the post is. So that let's call it, I'm going to call it structural gentleman's agreement. Now we have a culture in our men's teams to call men out when they're not being the men they always wanted to be. We have a culture of calling men out when we can, when we identify a gentleman's agreement. Well, I'm identifying a structural gentleman's agreement around outreach, and I'm calling MDI out on it. The DC reports to his regional core team every meeting on what's happening in outreach in his area. First of all, there's no definition for what outreach really is, as we've just identified. And if you want my personal opinion, there is a clear break between outreach and enrollment. Outreach is the business of being in relationship with men. That's it. Enrollment is when I pull out my MDI card. That's different. The man at the bottom of the chain for outreach, theoretically, is not the division outreach manager. it should theoretically be an outreach representative on each team. And yet, as an organization, we don't make that, for lack of a better word, mandatory. It's not part of our quote unquote, it's just what we do. That post at the front lines of outreach. We are okay with having whole divisions not having outreach representatives on teams. We're okay with having divisions that have some teams with outreach represented and some not. And we yet have other divisions that are kicking ass and have outreach representatives on each team. Now, whether there's an outreach rep on a team or not is not the result of structure, but the result of one man's ability to enroll. But if I told you that there was a team in San Diego that didn't have a leader because they decided that they didn't want that, that would be a problem. But if we have a team that doesn't have an outreach rep, it's not quite the same problem as if there was no team captain or team leader on the team. That's just silly talk. No captain, no leader. But yet we have this chain of command called outreach, where the expectations are from the outreach manager at the division level and up the same as captain, TC, regional president. It's like on paper, it's the same,
with love,
but in truth, it's different. I'm complete.
Snow, you wanted to address this? If you are, you're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. That was quite a, Allard, what some men on chat have called a filibuster. So, and I'm not really sure what your question is beyond, sort of your state of affairs take on what's going on in outreach. So here's my response. First off, you started off talking about the difference between outreach and growth, and you ended up talking about the difference between outreach and enrollment. So I'm not quite sure what your question or point is, but let me just say this. Historically, in this organization and the one that preceded it, the post that was responsible for bringing men in either to the organization or going back further into Men's Weekend was called an enrollment manager. And in 2004, I believe, that post was changed from enrollment manager to growth manager. Why that was done probably isn't important, but that was done 15 years ago. When I became president 5 years ago, we changed the post from growth manager to outreach manager. What I believe you're talking about is the distinction in some of our trainings, which is the distinction between enrollment and registration. So that's a different conversation. What I mostly want to address, though, is your point about making it okay to not have posts filled. I think that the description of what the post is clear, but it probably has not been communicated well or often enough or consistently enough so that men in the posts are clear about it. Number one, we need to be much better at that. And number two, I don't know that we're making it okay, but I guess, you know, indirectly we are by not making it, by not having a high enough expectation that these posts are filled, and that so that communication can go consistently up and down the chain so that the jobs could get done. And there seems to be a struggle across this organization to fill jobs. I don't want to get into the whole thing on that, but I hope that what you're hearing from me is that as far as the gentleman's agreement, as you called it, to like not to allow posts to be unfilled, I get your point and I agree. As far as growth and versus outreach, that's just a communication issue. So with that, I'm complete.
Allard, I'm going to move the call on to another question. I'm going to say that you and I and perhaps Prestera can talk about this offline, and we'll see what we can do about your issue. There was a Wostmeyer. I don't know if I pronounced your name properly. Wostermeyer. You had a question. Westmeyer. Thank you. I apologize for butchering your last name. So go ahead and ask. Oh, if you're talking, you're muted.
Okay. Okay, good. Just a follow-up question on the website. I went to it and I looked at it again. The Inventor, Discover, Inspire website looks great, looks nice and everything. However, maybe I'm a bit confused. It directs you to log into the MDI Connect website, which is a very watered down thing. And it seems to be non-interactive, and you get stymied there and you can't go anywhere. It just gives lists of the regional core teams, the membership and everything. It doesn't give you the things that were on the MDI website, Mentor, Discover, Inspire. Am I confused, or is that the way it is?
I'm not sure. I mean, there's a Mentor, Discover, Inspire website that's designed for the outside world, you know, for anybody who would Google search us to be on, which is colorful and has pictures and so on. And then there's an internal site for our membership, which, yes, has the list of rosters, but under the file library so that's one of the drop downs, and perhaps you haven't noticed it. You'll find exercises and rituals, documents from the board of directors, forms you may need, all the financial information, and then a section called all files. And under there, you can find exercises and rituals and programs and a whole bunch of other things, our logos and so on. So it may be just that you're not finding what you need, but you can if you look under the file library area of that site.
It just seemed very watered down to me, and I prefer the other site to use totally for it. Okay, the other question I had was brought up by another member of the division. He was asking, right now you're focusing on Facebook and Meetup. Okay, demographically or matrix-wise, that's older audience. Now that the younger audience is going to other things like Twitter and whatever, are we doing anything for the other social media?
Not at present, but it's something we'll look at in the future. Gumar, is there anything you want to address with that question?
Yeah, it's coming soon. With the content that we're going to build for the Facebook journey, we're going to actually reappropriate that, and we're going to use that into our YouTube channel, and channels that I haven't even thought of yet. So it's coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just speak anecdotally, Tomlinson?
Sure.
So yeah, we've been doing the Facebook campaign now for 4, 5, 6 weeks. We've had 20 plus leads. And I would admit that I was a little discouraged in the beginning because they were demographics were 40 to 50 plus, but recently we've been having men 35. We've got a couple of new men that are in their late 20s that are coming out from Facebook leads. So for us, the Facebook leads are working for all demographics.
So the next question goes to Satridge Palray.
Thank you. I post on Facebook because I want to. I post on specific forums because it relates to me and helps me to help other men who are struggling. I've yet to be approached by anybody in MDI, and I'm a dues paying member, on what is the criteria, what are you looking for. I hear about this, men being in the trenches, but what's the framework? Because if we have a hierarchy, am I not supposed to be mentored by somebody on how to do this? So that's one part of it. The other part is I'm also on a virtual team because I live in an area, there's no men's teams here. And I'm a dues paying man. I'd like to know where my money's going. I'd like to know what region I'm in, who's my DC, who's my RC. I do live in Canada, so I do know who the RC for Canada is, but I have men in the United States as well too on my team. How does that play into factor, and how can I have a conversation with new men? I've got about 4 of them, and they're not part of MDI, about where their money is going to go. So it's extremely concerning for me, to let go of my money and not have direction. With that, I'm complete for now.
Okay, I've lost your first question, but I can say about your second one, we're looking to, right now, your money actually just goes to international to forward the building of a program, what we call Build Your Region, or MDI Global. And, but there is one fully dues-paying team online in MDI Global, and we're looking to create a second team of that nature and form a tribe. And so the money that ultimately we're looking to create an online region which would be funded the same way that any region is funded, where 30% of the dues would go to support the activities of that, so that the online men are not actually going to be part of other regions. They're going to be part of their own region. And we're working on that right now, and have been for a bit. And I think you had a first question, but I've forgotten it. I really suck at, I really cannot do that. I'll answering the last one.
So my first part was, I have actively been posting on Facebook, even when I was in Ontario in Western Front. I'm in an area where I'm not a part of MDI, like on a physical team. So I post in certain forums that I relate to. I do it freely. I do it willingly. There's nobody mentoring me. There's a hierarchy that we have in this organization. I take it that somebody would want to reach out to me and say, hey, Ray, this is what we're aiming at. Can you help us curtail your message towards this? Is that something that's in the books, or am I just willing and able to post whatever I want, whatever I find, and just add MDI or Mentor Discover?
Kumar, you want to take this one?
Can you go, please?
We don't have a standards guide yet for how this brand's going to operate on Facebook. We just started to streamline our posts and get a strategy behind it. That's just where I'm at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting that Gumar's been in the job for weeks, not months. We didn't have anybody running marketing for the previous 7 or 8 years. And there's a lot to do immediately now to make sure that the new men are coming in through Facebook effectively. And But all this stuff, we've identified, him and I, as things we need to do in the future.
I would encourage you to also, when you're doing the Facebook thing, is find out where these men are being led from and by whom. That may help you too, with what demographics and what forums and so forth. With that, I'm complete.
Thank you. Iris, I understand you have a question.
Yeah, thanks. First off, I'd like to say, as the president of my MDI, to hear you deliver the mission at the beginning as such a task, just want you, I don't want to sell you out on that. So I hope you bring it. Okay, so I have like a couple concerns. A lot, especially with the questions that have been answered so far, a lot of this seems like there's a big push to build the boat while we're in the middle of the ocean. Men in global, this last question was pretty gnarly, and a lot of what men have been asking has been, as you said, kick the can down the road. There's major things that you guys are implementing like crazy, but then when it comes down to implementing it, it's left up to us. And I'm a direct participant in that with the Facebook program in San Diego, starting it off so early, right? So I have a couple questions. Is one, moving into you saying that you want men to have what you have, you've also emphasized that it's not important to be a member and do an initiation event, even though that's what you had, which set the tone for what we have today. So moving into this digital campaign, there's parts of the code of honor that are at risk, especially since you're trying to build the boat while you're in the middle of the ocean. One is respect confidentiality. If you have a marketing or technology department and we're talking about beta testing, how is that respecting confidentiality? If there's team reports, do you have guidelines about what is confidential and what's not, and standards around that? It's a big concern moving forward. And then my second question is, there was talk of ideas with the international core team in regards to Facebook. There are regions or divisions sitting on leads, as you call them, and flipping financially consequences financially if they sit on the leads and don't follow through with the international operations commitment of rolling out the Facebook program. So is there any validity to the idea being thrown around that financial consequences are being implemented to the regions for sitting on leads and not getting to them within 30 minutes? Yeah, that's what I got for you.
Yes, there is. There is a consideration that we should look at having the RCs and the international outreach team create a set of standards that they hold each other to in terms of how quickly these men get reached by text or by phone call. We know that a man that's reached by text or phone in the first 30 minutes has a 12% chance of becoming a member, and if we wait for a day, they have a 2% chance of becoming a member, statistically. So yes, there is some of that. And we have areas that are reaching men, I would say, within an hour consistently. Not always. I mean, of course, we're not going to say you've got to have someone awake at 3 a.m. And we're not going to say anything. Ultimately, I think we discussed this with an RC, and we haven't had an RC call yet to discuss it with the RC. So it's a little preemptive right now. But I think it's a discussion we need to have, is like, what do we need to do? Because in areas where it might be 6 days until a man who's responded to the Find a Team page gets answered, and international money's going towards that, when the odds of that man actually becoming a member are approaching zero. Well, at the same time, there's other areas that are effectively using those funds. It doesn't work to continue on this path where everybody gets to do the same, gets the same funding, yet doesn't have the same level of response. So the thought was, if a region doesn't want to do what it takes to set it to contact these men with whatever standards get set, then that region should pay for it themselves if they want to continue doing the advertising.
Okay. Because to me, I'm just going to speak personally.
Mm-hmm.
The way that it shows up is anything not going on with men in regions taking on the Facebook program with the context that there are men reaching out for something that we have. The leadership should take full responsibility, being the Allard's point is made perfectly here. The system this is a symptom, in my opinion, of leadership, which got us to the, I don't know what Lyons was talking about, but got us to the god-awful results of losing regions and men in one fell swoop. When you have a draw the line in the sand context, and now you're moving forward with this Facebook program with another draw the line in the sand, it's not something I'm looking to follow. It's not something I want to be a part of. And I really hope that this is part of your vision of getting the truth. This is my truth. I think this is the exact leadership style that affected the membership. You're unclear, leaving it up to the regions, but then when the regions don't do what you want to without your impeccable communication, which you should have as a president and as an international operations, now you're going to financially penalize them after they've funded the campaign. It's fucking crazy. So the confidentiality one next, since you're moving into such a digital age and we're having issues with figuring out which website, what is the action being taken on a technology side of how you will be able to abide by the code of honor by respecting confidentiality?
Smith, you want to field that? I think this related originally to the reports.
Yeah, I've had the same question about confidentiality around naming names on reports and so on. We have on the new form, we don't have a place to name names, and if you're using the existing form, I would always recommend that you ask a man if it's okay. Ask the men on your team if anybody has any objection to having their name on a report. And you can just put their initials, or you can put some sort of code so you can refer back to your notes and you understand what you've reported, but everybody in the world doesn't have to know the name of the man. So there are ways to use the existing form.
So is that going to be a full detailed training with impeccability to abide by the code of honor, or is it like going to be the same sort of communication as outreach versus enrollment versus growth? Because this is a very significant thing. If you have men that don't really know the security involved in turning this culture into a digital culture, you're putting men at risk. So I hope you take full responsibility for that.
Yeah, well, the thing is, and it's going to sound like pushing it down and giving the responsibility to other men, but there's no way that I can impose a rule that men either use names or don't use names and have everybody abide by that rule unless we create some kind of police force to go around and make sure that the rules are being covered. Everybody who uses the internet, anybody who uses social media, has a personal responsibility to guard their own privacy. And when you're talking about differences in men, like I said in my opening remarks, if you're in a regional position, that's the first place that I noticed that there are huge differences in a region, especially when we're covering a large area. And the way to handle that is not to impose rules where everyone has to behave the same way. But what we do in team leader development is we acknowledge that people can be different. Men can be different. And we embrace the difference of these men. And what we do on the weekly call is we try to discover what it is that we have in common. And the more things that we find that we have in common, that's where we can help each other. Did I answer your question?
You answered it.
Thank you.
So I know we had some men that wanted to ask a question, but I've also seen those men ask questions in the chat feature. And I think Childers is desperate to ask a question. So
well, yeah,
go to him, but for Nachman, if you still want to ask a different question, please say so in the chat and we'll get you up next. Go ahead, Childers.
all right. Well, I don't recall the man's name whose icon is the eye there. It was just speaking to you. But it, okay, well, it struck me that on one hand, you, sir, were calling Tomlinson to a strict set of codes, and yet as immediately after, you had strong objection to drawing a line for men accepting accountability for not following the program. So that's just really been rubbing me since it happened, and I thought since we're going to call people out, we ought to take a note of that. I'm complete.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next question.
Yeah, this is Nachman. I do have another question, and thank you for answering my question regarding Facebook and doing possible marketing and looking at that for legacy discovery events. My question then is, what is the current status of the creation of a new signature event complete?
The current status of it is that it is nowhere. Current status of it is that we put out to the men to make submissions by a certain date. We received 0 submissions. And we had a number of men respond to the original request for submissions saying they would, but we never saw any. And we're not, in terms of the board's directive, operations has not produced what it should have by now. We're behind in producing anything, and nothing has been done at this stage.
Copy that. So from what you're saying, can I presume that it's back burnered, or will membership will be knowing when that process starts up again if it does?
I could say that for me, with 6 months left as president, I'm not putting a major focus on it. And I'm, there's so much to do right now in terms of not just Facebook, but creating this new training for online with what's happening in the online world with new teams and creating a new division there that I don't have the bandwidth to take that on at present. So that does not mean that Mr. Estes will not do that in November.
That's a good copy. Thank you very much.
Okay. So I noted from Spear that he can't get his microphone on, and he's asking someone to share his question. I'm assuming previously up in the chat, there was a question. Does someone know Spear's question?
When do we?
Because I see that an ambassador.
Yeah, this,
When do we?
Yeah, I have it here. As an ambassador, I want to see what the contacts have seen before I talk with them. So where can we members see them?
Okay, so if you're an ambassador, once you've done your HubSpot training, you should be able to, on each lead that you get, each man that comes off, we call it leads, but really each man that comes to you to contact, you'll be able to see every page that he's looked at on Facebook that is related to us, and you'll be able to see every page on our website he looked at, and you'll be able to see whether he's opened any emails you've sent him or not. So all that gets recorded there. But I think that in terms of the interaction, as Gumar, starts to create the pieces in between in the journey that this man will make from Facebook ad to membership, there'll be a lot more information that we'll be able to provide the ambassadors to make the program better. If you got an answer, Spear, I can see you just nod. Okay, thank you. All right. I got it. Next question.
So this is Frost, DC and Legacy, and I have a quick question.
Sure.
We've had an issue with receiving no Facebook leads, and we voiced it to Monroe and to our outreach manager, and so far we've heard crickets. So can somebody give us an update? Thank you. I'm complete.
I do know, because that did get back to me, because Tager contacted me about it, that that you weren't getting leads, and we re-input the zip codes for your areas on Sunday, and all I can do is say that it's my assumption that they weren't properly input or we didn't properly receive them. So that's why you weren't getting leads. If you're still not getting leads, by the end of this week, we'll have to look into why that is. Any other questions?
Yes.
Well, I'll let you know. I'll let you know if we see anything. Or actually, I'll just give you some feedback on email.
Sure. Thank you.
Hello.
Go ahead, Mr. Robinson.
All right, Robinson, Abnaki Division, Canada Region. You punted down the road a little bit, Tomlinson, towards whether Estes might drive a alternative signature MDI program. Estes, can we hear from you? Is this something that you want to drive forward? And if so, what's the impetus for that?
Sure. Well, much like what Tomlinson said, I don't have the bandwidth for it right now. And, there's progress that should have been made that hasn't. It's a backburnered item, and but I will pledge that if and when it becomes front burnered again, I'll send out a notice to the membership to that effect, letting everybody know that the project is starting up again and what we're up to.
Yeah,
I won't wait until we get down the road to do that. I'll do it before we take any other action. I'll let the membership know that we're starting up again.
And so the piece I'm missing is starting up. Why? Or we're not as far as long as we should be. What's the should coming from? We've got a Legacy Discovery's pretty powerful program. Everybody here hopefully has participated and benefited. I've never heard a man say, well, it sure was missing The MDI should sure be about something else. Like I'm just missing the piece about why we're talking about this.
Oh, well, that's because you live in Toronto, Robinson. There are large parts of this organization that do not embrace legacy discovery wholeheartedly. Some of them have left, but you know, that's certainly a reality in Mentor, Discover, Inspire. So it's a board initiative, and it comes, I believe, from board representatives carrying forward the views of their members.
Some members. All right. Yeah.
And I'm from Toronto as well, so I mean, I have a different cultural feeling about it. Any other questions tonight? Okay, so there's a question from Spear. Why do a new one? Sterling Men's Weekend was fine-tuned for decades, and we have fine-tuned the LD over and over. Is it just to change the name? No, so the board's idea was never to eliminate Legacy Discovery. It was to create an event targeted at a younger audience in a way that they interpreted the Sterling Men's Weekend to be, and to create something that would inspire those men and to have another weekend. And other organizations, for instance, the Mankind Project has a core weekend in its new warrior training, but it has multiple weekends for men. And the board felt that that would be a good thing for Mentor, Discover, Inspire to have as well. Any other questions? Okay, well, I'd like to say to the men, I want to say thank you, all of you, for showing up. We had, like, I believe, over 80 men on this call, and we had whole teams coming in, and it shows the level of interest the leadership has in this organization. You know, we had a very senior leader in Toronto do legacy in the Mankind Project. In fact, a leader of the new warrior training do legacy discovery recently, and he came out to our team generation meeting, and he saw that there was 80 or 90 men there, and he said, "Oh my God, I'm in an organization that claims to have 100,000 men in it, and I've never been in a room with 80 men. It's so inspiring to see how much you men care about your community." And I just want to thank you for caring about Mentor, Discover, Inspire like I do. And I know that a lot of you have deep disagreements with things that I have done or the board has done or that leadership has done and continues to do. But I also know that those disagreements come from your love and care for the men and for Mentor, Discover, Inspire. And so feel free to keep disagreeing with me, and feel free to call me, and feel free to email me with questions. I know some of you may have the opinion that, I'm hard to reach or something. I'm not. Anybody who's reached out to me knows that I respond. I love hearing from the membership. I love hearing about your concerns. And that's why I love doing this. And I look forward to the next one. And I look forward to hearing from you in between. Thank you for what you do for men. And thank you, most importantly, for what you're going to do for men in the future. Good night, man.
There's a
Good night, Mr. Frost.
Good night, John Boy.
We seem to have lost RCs, other than Kimura.
Well, it isn't for my lack of sending them a reminder of when the call is, which from their perspective is in 3 minutes.
Maybe they didn't know it was the same number.
I looked and I had to check, but
Yeah, I logged off and on again.
Do, do, do.
I do like Nachman's final message, which is to thank you, board. Please do more of these.
Right, well, we can do that. He's thanking the wrong people, of course, but.
Let's just lob it over to them. I don't know.
Well, I think we probably should do more of them. I think that when the more hostile questions are asked to us, we can answer them. But when an elder asks them at a division meeting, they're met with silence. And it creates a narrative and a story that's not accurate. I think we actually need to give the Iries and the Nachmans and the Spears more opportunities to ask these questions, not less. And frankly, when they run amok like Iries did tonight, it's awesome when a man who's not on this team calls them out. And it actually kind of exposes them for who they are if that's who they're being.
I had a hard time, and this is outside of my personal relationship with you, Jeff, just watching the president of my organization take these pre-assumed, condemnations. And I'm fucking sick and tired of men on the West Coast thinking they know what happened in New York. Like just assuming, just making the assumption, leadership fucked it all up.